Hello and good morning, wonderful 10th grade students of E-Course Community High School. Long time no see to everybody. Of course, we've all been quarantined and living this quarantine life for some weeks now. As you can see, your teacher here haven't had a haircut, so I know I don't look as I normally would look when you guys see me in school. However, we're all making it through, so I hope all is well with everyone, with each and every one of you, as well as your families. Okay. This week we have three assignments that are on Google Classroom that you are expected to complete. This first assignment that I have up now is a continuation of our in-class lesson, and it is based from lesson 11 from a letter from a Birmingham jail. So I am going to sort of follow the same routine as we have followed in class for all those many weeks that we were covering a letter from a Birmingham jail. So of course, if you can see this document, which I know I did post it in Google Classroom, I'm going to read through it as well as teach to the document as well. So if you have a highlighting tool on your computer or a way that you can highlight and annotate your text, of course, I would appreciate it if you guys continue to do that as well, which is what we did in our class. Okay, so it says that the due date for this lesson is Monday, April 20th, which is going to give you guys almost a full week to complete. Today is Tuesday, so you guys have until Monday of next week to submit. Okay, introduction. In this lesson, students read and analyze paragraphs 22 through 23 of Letter from a Birmingham Jail. From "You spoke of our activity in Birmingham as extreme" to "I was initially disappointed in being so categorized," in which King continues his criticism of the white moderates' lack of action to end injustice. Students analyze how King appeals to his addressees and uses rhetoric to advance his criticism. Okay, and just like we did in class, guys, I have included the lesson vocabulary. So we're going to read through these vocabulary terms together. All right. The first term is extremist, which is a noun, a person who believes in and supports ideas that are very far from what most people consider correct or reasonable. The second word, complacency, a feeling of quiet pleasure or security, often while unaware of some potential danger. Third word, repudiated, verb, rejected with disapproval or condemnation. Fourth word, ideologies, noun, bodies of doctrine, myth, etc., with reference to some political or social plan, along with the devices for putting them into operation. Fifth word, Zeitgeist. I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing that correctly. You guys may want to pull that up on Google just to make sure. It's my first run going through these. That word is a noun, the spirit of the time, general trend of thought or feeling, characteristic of a particular period of time. Pilgrimages, noun, journeys, especially long ones, made to some sacred place as an act of religious devotion. Okay, so you have all of the words there. We're going to move down, guys. And as you know, in our PowerPoint slides, there were other steps that we will follow. This week, I did not create those slides. I'm thinking about using those for our lesson for next week. However, for this week, we're going to continue on with the lesson, okay? We're following it the way we're setting it up here. Reading and discussion. Make sure you annotate your text as you read. Box in unfamiliar words and highlight for central ideas, okay? So there is a tool that I have here in this app that I'm using where I can annotate, okay? So I can kind of draw lines or highlight things and make little notes as I read through this, okay? So the first thing I'm going to try would be let's see, find my highlighting tool, if I can find that. Okay, looks great. All right, And so, or maybe this one is to draw lines. So let's see how this works anyway. This is my first time, guys. So, all right, bear with me. Okay, now I can't get back to my document. How do I do this? Okay, anyway, let's keep on moving along. All right, don't want to get stuck too long. Okay, so here are our directions for our reading and discussion. It says directions, reread paragraph 22 from you spoke of our activity in Birmingham as extreme to a frightened racial nightmare and answer the following questions. So this is the same format, guys, that we use during class. Okay, so we're going to do the read aloud together. All right, I did include paragraphs 22 and 23. And I'm scrolling down because, of course, I want to read through the text-dependent questions so I can have an idea of what type of responses I'm looking for before I even read. You guys know that's a good thing to do. So let's go ahead and read through these text-dependent questions really quick. Okay, number one. In the second sentence of paragraph 22, why does King say he is disappointed? What is the impact of beginning his statement with the phrase, at first? Okay, so we'll look for that in paragraph 22. Number two, what does King's statement that he stands in the middle of two opposing forces in the Negro community suggest about his beliefs? Number three, what can you infer about Elijah Muhammad's Muslim movement and Black nationalist ideologies? Okay, if you guys can recall, we watched a nice video in class one day. I think it was on a Friday, guys. I know we didn't have a lot of kids there possibly that day. However, many of you may remember we watched a video based on Malcolm X. And in that video on Malcolm X, it spoke about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Muslim movement, okay? This part about the Black nationalist ideologies, we'll read more into that as we go through the paragraphs, okay? But for right now, I just wanted to give you a little background knowledge on that particular question, because that is something that we did have a little bit of insight into based on that Malcolm X video that we watched in class, okay? Question 4, in paragraph 22, what does King present instead of the do-nothingism of the complacent or the hatred and despair of the Black nationalists? Okay, that's going to be in paragraph 22. Number 5, what is the impact of this allusion to a more excellent way? Number 6, in the following statement in paragraph 22, what connection does King draw? I'm grateful to God that through the Negro Church, the dimension of nonviolence entered our struggle. Number 7, what is the impact of placing the allusion to a more excellent way with this statement? Number 8, what image does King create to contrast the more excellent way? Number 9, what does King mean by the streets would be flowing with floods of blood? That's going to be in paragraph 22. Number 10, what is the impact of this imagery? Number 11, in paragraph 23, what are African Americans moving towards with a sense of cosmic urgency? And number 12, what is the impact of the image pilgrimages to the City Hall? Okay, so to the best of your ability as we read, I would like for you guys to look for the responses to these questions, okay? They're going to be embedded in those paragraphs, I'm sure. So as we read, remember, try to highlight and annotate your text, and also do what you need to do to circle or do what, find those answers and highlight or whatever to make sure you have those responses. Also, guys, we did quick writes with every set of questions, okay? So I did include the quick write, which says, directions, respond briefly to the following prompt by writing 3 to 5 sentences based on your understanding of today's reading lesson. Remember, rhetoric is, and this is the definition that we put on the board in class, the art of effective or persuasive speaking or writing, especially the use of figures of speech and other compositional techniques. Excuse me. And so here is the question, right? How does King's use of rhetoric advance his purpose in paragraphs 22 through 23? Also, guys, when you are working on this, remember I've shortened the length of sentences in class normally. I know I would tell you guys no less than 5 sentences. Because we're not actually in class right now, I'm shortening that to 3 to 5 sentences. Please try to give me your best 3 to 5 sentences. And also, you may want to refer to those rhetoric tools that I handed out to you guys. I think it was the day before we left, because remember, we were supposed to have a test coming up that next Monday in school. Okay, so you guys should still have those rhetoric handouts that I gave you that gives you exact examples of rhetoric and how King uses those examples of rhetoric throughout his speech. Okay, so we've read through the questions. Now let's go back up to the paragraphs. All righty. Paragraph 22. You spoke of our activity in Birmingham as extreme. At first, I was rather disappointed that fellow clergymen would see my nonviolent efforts as those of an extremist. I started thinking about the fact that I stand in the middle of two opposing forces in the Negro community. One is a force of complacency made up of Negroes who, as a result of long years of oppression, have been so completely drained of self-respect and a sense of somebodyness that they have adjusted to segregation. And on the other hand, of a few Negroes in the middle class who, because of a degree of academic and economic security, and because at points they profit by segregation, have unconsciously become insensitive to the problems of the masses. The other force is one of bitterness and hatred, and comes perilously, close to advocating violence. It is expressed in the various Black nationalist groups that are springing up over the nation, the largest and best known being Elijah Muhammad's Muslim movement. Okay, so remember, this is something that I wanted to emphasize, that this is going to come up, the question about Elijah Muhammad's Muslim movement. So I'm kind of moving my cursor around right here where you guys can see where this is located, okay? Moving on. This movement is nourished by the contemporary frustration over the continued existence of racial discrimination. It is made up of people who have lost faith in America, who have absolutely repudiated Christianity, and who have concluded that the white man is an incurable devil. I have tried to stand between these two forces, saying that we need to not follow the do-nothingism. Here's another one of our things that pops up in one of our questions, guys. Do-nothingism. I'm kind of swinging my cursor around right here so you can see where it's located, okay? That we need not to follow the do-nothingism of the complacent or the hatred and despair of the Black nationalists. There is a more excellent way of love and nonviolent protest. I'm grateful to God that through the Negro Church, the dimension of nonviolence entered our struggle. If this philosophy had not emerged, I am convinced that by now many streets of the South would be flowing with floods of blood. I am further convinced that if our white brothers dismiss as rabble-rousers and outside agitators those of us who are working through the channels of nonviolent direct action and refuse to support our nonviolent efforts, millions of Negroes, out of frustration and despair, will seek solace and security in Black nationalist ideologies. There's another term that popped up, guys, in one of our questions, that idea of Black nationalist ideologies, a development that will lead inevitably to a frightening racial nightmare, okay? So once again, guys, I could not get my highlighting tool to work. I'm gonna figure out how all these things work inside this app. This is all new to Mr. Simpson, so please forgive me. But I'm doing my best to go through this. And as you see, I am kind of, moving my cursor around in some areas where I am suggesting that you do either underlining or highlighting for your questions. okay? And also just to make sure you're following what his central idea is, okay? And remember, I think where we left off, his central idea was going against the white nationalists, okay? And saying that it was okay to not abide by certain laws that were set up to keep segregation going. You guys remember that discussion in class? We talked very in depth on that, guys. So that's something that you should remember or try to recall in your mind, okay? Moving on to paragraph 23. So far, so good. And also don't forget, there'll be an hour where if you have questions, you guys can chime in with me. We can work on some of this together just like we did in class. No problem. If you run in any situations where you need help, remember, we'll have an hour of homework hotline where we can work together, guys, on this, okay? All right, let's move on to the next paragraph. Oppressed people cannot remain oppressed forever. The urge for freedom will eventually come. This is what has happened to the American Negro. Something within has reminded him of his birthright of freedom. Something without has reminded him that he can gain it. Consciously and unconsciously, he has been swept in by what the Germans called Zeitgeist. Once again, don't quote me on my pronunciation of that word. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it the right way, guys, but if I'm not, I'm sure somebody in the class will correct Mr. Simpson. And with his black brothers of Africa and his brown and yellow brothers of Asia, South America, and the Caribbean, he is moving with a sense of cosmic urgency. Okay, if you see my cursor right here, guys, cosmic urgency, those were two words that were either in your questions or in the definitions, but I think that was part of your questions, okay? So once again, where that cursor is moving right there for cosmic urgency, that is an area where you're gonna either highlight or make sure you remember where that is because that popped up in one of your questions, okay? He is moving with a sense of cosmic urgency toward the promised land of racial justice. Recognizing this vital urge that has engulfed the Negro community, one should readily understand public demonstrations. The Negro has many pent-up resentments and latent frustrations. He has to get them out. So let him march sometimes. Let him have his pilgrimages, to the city hall. Understand why he must have sit-ins and freedom rides. If his repressed emotions do not come out in these nonviolent ways, they will come out in anonymous expressions of violence. So in other words here, guys, Dr. King, I think, is saying that, hey, we need to express the frustrations that we're under right now, right? Remember, they were oppressed. They were segregated against. And this wasn't by choice, okay? They were forced into segregation, okay? So what Dr. King is saying here, guys, in this paragraph is, hey, let my brothers and sisters express themselves, all the frustration that they feel, okay? If they need to have sit-ins and prayer pilgrimages to City Hall, let them do this, all right? They have to express these emotions, especially in nonviolent ways. If not, what's the opposite of nonviolent? Violent. And we all know that we've had many discussions about this in class, okay? So it's better to let them express themselves in these nonviolent ways than in violent ways. Last part of the paragraph, guys. Here I am, if you see my cursor. This is not a threat. It is a fact of history. So I have not said to my people, get rid of your discontent. But I have tried to say that this normal and healthy discontent can be channeled through the creative outlet of nonviolent direct action. There's one of our favorite terms, guys. We've heard that plenty of times, that nonviolent direct action, okay? You know what that means. Now this approach is being dismissed as extremist. I must admit that I was initially disappointed in being so categorized. Okay, so once again, I don't want to go too deep into helping you with the questions. I would like for you guys to use the text today, to do your best job to respond to the text dependent questions and to also try to complete the quick write assignment. Okay, I think we've had a pretty good discussion on the text today. All right. If any of you have not accepted the invite on Google Classroom, please make sure that you accept that invite. The due date, once again, for this assignment is next Monday, the 20th, by midnight, okay? You have 2 other assignments that are in the Google Classroom. Please try to complete those as well. If you have any questions about those 2 other assignments, make sure you chime in with me when we have that 1 hour on the homework hotline, okay? And I'm thinking that the time will be on Wednesdays. I haven't set the exact time, so it'll be on Wednesday, but check Google Classroom for the exact time, okay? Once again, this has been a great experience, guys. It's unfortunate that this is what we have to do right now, but I'm sure it'll all work out for the betterment of everybody, okay? As Mr. Barclay always says, it's a great day to be a Raider. I'm hoping that we all get back to normal as soon as possible, but until then, guys, stay safe, stay strong, protect you and your families, and Mr. Simpson will talk to you guys real soon.